One of the outcomes of the game at the Emirates against Arsenal in the Premier League, I think, was confirmation of something that we probably already knew, something that's already been spoken about, but it was, I think, confirmed, reinforced before our very eyes when the squads were announced at 1:45, I think it was, thereabouts. And that was the fact that after just over a season and a £35 million transfer fee there or thereabouts, and all the wages that would have been involved, and everything else, every other factor involved, I think it's been confirmed beyond any shadow of a doubt that the West Ham United career of Jean-Clair Todibo is in ruins. Absolutely in ruins. That's the second squad, and we know he was fit because it was confirmed in Nuno's press conference that he was available for selection, and yet there was the squad, starting 11, substitutes, and the name of Jean-Clair Todibo was conspicuous by its absence. And I think this means that this is the beginning of the end for the French player. Now, I'm sure there'll be certain things that I'll say here that you will push back against. There'll be certain things here that you agree with. Either way, no problem at all. But get your comments in the section below either way. Please also don't forget to drop a like on the stream and give us a hype if you have one available. Consider sharing this onto your social media platforms and check to see if you're subscribed to the channel. If you're not, please click subscribe, and it doesn't cost you any money and we don't get any data sensitive information. We just grow this channel together into something bigger than what it is right now, and we thank you very much indeed for your support in this matter. Now, Jean-Clair Todibo, I'll be completely honest, before he rocked up at London Stadium, I didn't have a clue who he was. I'm not an expert in French football, and some people would say I'm not even an expert in English football, which probably a little bit harsh, but maybe not. I don't know. That's your opinion. But anyway, we was obviously after him. It was Tim Stighton who was photographed on the plane when the signing had been done. So he was obviously quite instrumental in getting the Frenchman's signature on the dotted line. Now, he obviously came in with something of a reputation. Manchester United were apparently chasing him. Now, I'm not quite sure that Manchester United chasing a player these days means quite what it did at the heights of the Alex Ferguson era, but that's another story. But he was obviously signed for a lot of money for a club of us. You know, 35 million quid is not an insignificant chunk of change. So he comes in, everyone's got the sort of like the hat on the side of their head, everybody's celebrating a real transfer coup on the face of it. He comes into the squad, comes into the first starting 11, and I think one of the things that became apparent very quickly was he didn't really complete 90 minutes none too often. Then you start to hear stories about he's never really been fully fit. It takes him a lot of time to get fully fit, and it's something to do with an accident when he was a child, a car accident, which has affected him, which is not ideal. And you'd like to think that these are facts that the club would have known about before they'd have signed him. And if we didn't, that's quite a damning indictment of their due diligence process in signing players, I would suggest. There's also been stories that one of the reasons why he has certain issues with relation to fitness and possibly mobility is he's got one leg that's slightly shorter than the other, which again, for a professional athlete, I would suggest is not exactly ideal. And once again, I have to ask the question, is that something that the club knew about when it did its due diligence? If they didn't, once again, I would suggest that is very poor on the part of the club. Now, he's come in, he comes into the team, comes into the club during the Julien Lopetegui era. As I say, Tim Stighton was also heavily involved in getting him into the club. In fact, I think, in truth, this was a Tim Stighton signing. I don't think this was a Lopetegui signing. I don't think this was a Sullivan signing. Yes, Sullivan would have had to have signed it off as the majority shareholder, but I think the driving force behind the signing of Jean-Clair Todibo was Tim Stighton. So for me, if I had to point the finger of culpability in any direction, I think my default position would be it's Tim Stighton I would apportion that particular honour to. Now, Jean-Clair Todibo, very early on, in fact I can't remember, I think it was the Brentford game away, there were reports that Jean-Clair Todibo had something of an altercation with Julien Lopetegui. Now, I think it's probably a lot of people at the time, given the reports about the manager and his demeanour and one thing and another, probably at the time thought that the manager was probably equally to blame for the situation than the player was. Fair enough, and I wasn't there, so I don't know. But then, as you move forward in time, and you've now got the Graham Potter era, and you still had stories there about his conduct, about his attitude in training, during matches, everything besides, that just painted a picture of someone who was a bit of a bad egg, wasn't quite someone that you'd really want around, especially in a team that's struggling. He'd be something of a destabilising influence. Now we're in the Nuno era, and he's not been involved at all. Not too sure whether he was fit for the Everton game, but it's pretty much been confirmed he was fit for the Arsenal game, and he wasn't in that squad. Now, either he is what we think he is, and he's a bad apple, or it's a fitness thing. I don't know which, or it might be a little bit of both. But clearly Nuno's made the call very, very early, in the same way that he has with James Ward-Prowse. But let's be honest, there's a bit of a difference there, because James Ward-Prowse and Nuno have worked together already, so he would know precisely what characteristics James Ward-Prowse has to bear, and he already knows that it's not going to work. So he's made the call with JWP quite early. But Jean-Clair Todibo, I don't think they've ever crossed paths before, Nuno and Jean-Clair, but he's made a very early decision that his career at West Ham is probably over before it's actually started under him. Given it's a £35 million investment we've made in this player just in the transfer fee, let alone any other expenditure that's attached to him, this is a big call. This is a really big call, because this is going to have some big implications, profit and sustainability, financial fair play, whatever, because we've got a £35 million asset that we paid for. I'm not too sure how long the contract was. It wouldn't have been insignificant, I'm sure. Probably a 4 or 5 year contract. Well, we're what, less than 18 months into that contract, and it looks like we're going to have to move this guy on. The problem is, if you're a buying club, if you were looking to buy him, you're not paying anywhere near 35 million quid, are you? Absolutely not. You've got stories about his attitude, you've got stories about his lack of fitness. Why would you pay West Ham United anything even remotely close to what they paid for him? We're going to get lowballed again, aren't we? Once again, we're going to get lowballed. Typical West Ham, buy a player for a lot of money and end up having to basically give him away in a jumble sale. Brilliant bit of business. But what do you think? And do you think that maybe Jean-Clair Todibo is being a little bit harshly treated by Nuno? Do you think that maybe he should be giving him some sort of opportunity, and then it's up to him whether he takes that opportunity or not? Or do you think that the die has been cast and actually Jean-Clair Todibo is a busted flush in claret and blue colours, and that he needs to find somewhere else to go? I think it's quite sad, because I think it's clear that this player had some sort of potential, but he's just wasted it, just wasted the opportunity. But let me know your thoughts. Jean-Clair Todibo, is his West Ham career over? Do you think that it's a fitness thing? Do you think it's an attitude thing? Do you think there's something else going on? And do you think we got any hope whatsoever of getting any sort of decent transfer value out of him? Because I don't. I think we're in trouble as far as that's concerned. We're probably going to have to take another financial hit yet again. Let me know your thoughts. You've got a comment section below. Get stuck in. Please don't forget to drop a like on the stream. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. It doesn't cost you any money. We just get onto a higher plane than what you find us now. And we thank you very much indeed for your support. Take care. Come on, you irons.